Milan gave their chances of qualifying from Group F a huge boost after they beat PSG 2-1 at San Siro. This was a must-win for Milan, who needed to silence an Mbappe who had scored 7 in his last 8 for club and country. So how did they do it? So we can see the setups from both teams here in this screenshot. You can see PSG here are in a 4-3-3 with Ugarte as the pivot, single pivot there, with both Warren Zaïre-Emery and Vitinha ahead of him. And you can see that Ousmane Dembele and Mbappe holding the width with Kolo Muani up front. PSG really struggled to build up with Ugarte. He only completed 11 passes in the game and lost possession 8 times. And because of this, PSG often looked to bypass him and play into either side of him, into Zaïre-Emery or Vitinha, who both completed 45 and 62 passes respectively, so a lot more than Ugarte managed to do. And the front three really struggled to impact the game, with Dembele and Kolo Muani particularly going missing for large spells of it. They were limited to a joint 0.26 XG together. That was less than Loftus-Cheek on his own. Whereas when we look at Milan here, you can see they're set up out of possession, which is really where they did win this game. They looked to go man-to-man against PSG with a 4-2-3-1, with Ruben Loftus-Cheek here pushing on to Ugarte as a single pivot, while Musa and Reinders remained close to their men, kind of behind, tracking Vitinha and Warren Zaïre-Emery. And the main focus, of course, for Milan in this game was how are they going to stop Mbappe? Well, let's look at it. So here we're 3 minutes into the game, and you can see already that the Milan plan is to restrict Mbappe to as little space as possible and guide him down the line. This most highlighted in the fact that there's 4 players within a really short space here surrounding Mbappe and really forcing only one pass, which is back to, I believe that's Vitinha there. We can also look at the body position that we have here of Calabria. And this was a typical thing that Calabria did throughout the game. He angled his body to show Mbappe down the line into a space where he has support from Tomori, who can also come across, and Reinders if he needs to as well. But this was a really important part of Milan's game plan. Forced Mbappe to never really cut inside. The only real passing opportunity, particularly in the first half of the game, was either to play a risky ball into here, which Musa has covered, and also Loftus-Cheek coming back into this area. They both have a chance to intercept that ball or to play it back, which really cut out Mbappe's kind of creativity in the early parts of the game. And you can also note the positioning of the players at the back post. You can see that Milan have a 2v1 against Kolo Muani there, which is obviously positive. And Musa's kind of tracking Ousmane Dembele. So Milan have a really favourable defensive position there. If Mbappe's going to cross the ball in, you've got Thiaw and Hernandez who can both deal with that. And Maignan here's got a good starting position so he can cut out those balls into that area. So it really shows how they've worked really hard to stop Mbappe being that creative force. And this is 15 minutes later. You can see the same things happening again. Calabria again. His body position is inviting Mbappe to take him on down the line. Tomori is covering that area so you know they can have a 2v1 in that space. And there's another 3 players in this area. Pulisic coming back as well to track. And you can see that Mbappe really has very, very few options to play the ball inside. And he has to go back into Skriniar or into Lucas Hernandez in this case. And in the instances that Mbappe did get further forward and did have chances, you can see that again, here we have 2 defenders covering him. Reinders there, his body position is quite interesting to see. You know, he's saying to force Mbappe down the outside. We hope that's where he's going to go. Pointing to Tomori to help cover that area, to kind of block this sort of space that Mbappe's cross will end up going into. And in this instance, Mbappe does elect to come inside, but then his shot is blocked by Reinders. So it really shows how important it is to have that double up, how important it was for Milan to have that in place to make sure that Mbappe's creativity and kind of threat was really quelled right from the start. With Ugarte really struggling to help PSG build out from the back, PSG also tried some long balls from Marquinhos and Skriniar into Mbappe's feet, but Calabria was fantastic throughout the game at getting in front of Mbappe and stopping those balls connecting and starting, well, basically Milan's counterattacks from there. Calabria made the most tackles in the game, which was 5, and obviously with PSG being quite Mbappe dominant in, quite a lot of their play, that was really shown in how well Calabria did deal with him. Tomori and Thiaw had 5 blocks and 5 interceptions between them. They were really fantastic at cutting out any balls that went into Kolo Muani, who was really anonymous throughout the game. They completely bossed him. He had the fewest touch of any PSG starting player with just 13 and was dragged off at about 65 minutes for Gonzalo Ramos, who didn't really change much either to be honest. But when Milan regained the ball, their plan in possession was one word: forwards. The aim was to turn and move the ball forwards once they regained the ball, be that through the carrying of their wide men or from midfield, with the 3 who started for Milan all fantastic carriers: Musa, Reinders, and particularly Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who had a fantastic game that we'll slightly dissect a little bit more in a minute. But they often also tried to get the ball into their wide men in Leao and Pulisic, the former who had probably his best game in a Milan shirt for a while. And they would constantly try and beat their men, get on the turn and drive in behind the PSG defence, who often were quite out of shape when they lost the ball, with Hakimi kind of playing in a half space, moving forward and kind of inverting. It left PSG slightly outnumbered whenever Milan kind of won the ball back in midfield, which we'll also show in a minute with Skriniar being kind of caught a little bit out with Hakimi nowhere near in the picture, being caught further out the pitch. But I want to give an example of one of those Leao carries now, which we can see here. Leao currently has the ball over here on the left-hand side and is being tracked by Hakimi. And Leao, as he often did throughout the game, got to the byline and took his man on. And he takes Hakimi down this left-hand side and beats him. But Leao gets to the byline and looks up and picks out a really good pass to Loftus-Cheek on the edge of the box, which Milan are really good at doing, having those third-man runs, arriving late into the box from the midfield. And this is Ruben Loftus-Cheek's only real poor moment in a standout performance, alongside him also losing Skriniar for the corner, which is PSG's only goal. But Loftus-Cheek really should do better and get this shot on target. But it really highlights how Milan focused on getting the ball out wide and really driving at PSG and creating chances from there. So we can see another example here of Leao picking up the ball and driving against PSG's slightly poor rest defence, which is when they had the ball and then lose the ball, how they're set up to defend those transitions. So Leao's very tightly marked by Marquinhos and is coming back towards goal. And he creates a little bit of space for himself, as you can see here, getting about arm's length away from Marquinhos and really nicely turns him. Driving into the PSG half, you can see that Marquinhos is trying to get to him. Hakimi's coming back from his inverted position, can't quite catch up to Leao's speed and pace when he's carrying this ball. And Giroud makes a really nice run off this left-hand side because Skriniar here is slightly caught in two minds whether to stay with Giroud or leave that gap there open for Leao to continue his run through. But as we move one on, you can see that Leao still he keeps carrying the ball. He's carried the ball a good, 50 metres, I imagine. And Giroud's continued to make that run and Leao finds him. And Giroud creates a good chance for himself to score, which is then parried and Leao finishes with that sublime overhead kick. But what does all this show? Well, it showed how well Milan utilised their strong carriers within the game and how their fast transitional play really caught PSG out of shape. Although PSG were really poor in how they were set up to defend those transitions, their focus on quick play really exposed that weakness in the PSG midfield and that kind of space that Hakimi left on that right-hand side. And I thought it was also quite interesting how Kolo Muani had to do a lot of the defensive work when PSG were pressing Milan and left a lot of space for Calabria to run down the right-hand side, which was shown in the fact that Calabria was joint third for carries for Milan down that right-hand side. And one man who was so important in this victory was Ruben Loftus-Cheek, as I mentioned earlier, and he completed one carry which was fantastic and really eased the pressure on Milan as they were defending towards the end of the game. You can see Loftus-Cheek's picking up this ball here, passing into him from Tiani Reinders, and he's holding off Ousmane Dembele, picks up the ball and just drives. That is one of his main strengths, one that we haven't really seen with him being kind of fraught with injuries throughout his time, previously both at Chelsea and at the start of his Milan career. But now I really hope that we do see more of this Loftus-Cheek because he's so exciting and so impressive to watch. Because he picks up that ball and drives basically to the opposite side of the pitch and forces a foul on him by Skriniar and really relieves the pressure that Milan were under at that time. And I think it really shows how well Milan's game plan worked to really disrupt PSG and to hit them on the fast transition, knowing that they had this sort of weakness in defence. And I think they adapted really well to those PSG changes. Krunic also really helped to kind of quash the danger that Hakimi brought in when he was playing hard at the pitch with them wanting that final goal. But I think overall the game plan from Pioli worked really well and they executed it fantastically, with Leao and Ruben Loftus-Cheek really highlighting how well they did play. So to give a summary of what Milan did and how it worked, they forced Mbappe outside all the time. They very, very rarely allowed him to cut inside. And if they did, when they doubled up or even tripled up on him, they forced that ball backwards or forced a block shot and really only allowed him two maybe chances, one of which he missed completely and one of which Maignan saved really nicely. And considering he scored 4 in his last 5, including 1 against Milan in the previous leg, I thought the plan that Pioli put down for his players was executed really, really well, and they really did silence Mbappe throughout the game. Tomori and Chow were really good at monitoring Kolo Muani, and Tomori would come across to help Calabria with Mbappe, and they managed the rotations of the front 3 towards the end of the game, well, front 4 that it was at times, really, really well. And I think Mbappe will be having nightmares involving Daniele Calabria for a few weeks because he was just fantastic. Mbappe just could not beat him at any point. And if he did, there was another man on the inside, be that Tomori or Reinders, who would really help to back up their captain. And that's really put Milan in a stronger position in the group now. It's quite interesting to see who will qualify from what people called the group of death at the start. Let me know who you think might qualify in the comments. It's going to be really quite interesting in the next few match weeks. And if you haven't seen the video I did on the Milan rebuild and how they've added all these ball carriers into their squad, I'll leave a link in the description. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like it if you did, subscribe if you'd like to, and I hope to see you in a video very soon.